What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Law Benfica Podcast, episode number 183. Every week here, we bring you the latest on Benfica. This week is a tough one after yesterday's game, but we'll get there in due time. With me tonight, Steve Santos in Toronto.
What's up, Alfredo?
And we got Sergio Rodrigues also in Toronto, right, Sergio? Are you in Toronto or no?
Yeah, I'm just north. I'm in Bolton, but we consider it Toronto. It's all Toronto. Fuck it.
Okay. and Cristiano Oliveira is live from the streets of New York.
Olá, senhoras e senhores. Thank you for saving the best flash, Alfredo. Okay, everybody doing all right?
Yeah, so on tonight's agenda, we will look back at the Setubal game. We'll also look at the game against Uniao. Talk a little bit about the TV deal after they announced in a press conference. Champions League draw, and Rio Ave preview, and the European Cup drawing for Portugal. We'll finish with that if we have a little time. So let's talk about the Setubal game, which happened this past Saturday, 8:45 local time. Benfica lined up with the following 11: Júlio César, Lisandro, Jardel, André Almeida and Eliseu were across the back, Samaris and Renato in the middle, Pizzi and Gedge on the wings, Jonas and Mitroglou were up front. Steve, surprised at all that Samaris made a return to the lineup behind Renato?
No, I wouldn't say I was surprised. I obviously prefer him over Fesa. I think Rui Vitoria is trying to figure out who he likes better at this point, but as much as I hate to say it, I think he's pointing towards Fesa at this moment.
Yeah, I think that at least from what we saw, at least, and we'll get there in the Union game, I think maybe he could change based on what the team's going to need.
It's a position that I wouldn't want to tinker too much with. Your basic stance should be a more offensive one. You'd probably want a guy who could play a little bit more football. I would prefer Samaris. I don't like the idea of switching the number 6 around too much. It's just, for me, it's the most important position on the pitch. So I wouldn't do it. As a reference point for almost the whole team, I wouldn't play around too much with that position. Try to leave the guy who plays that position pretty consistent. So I don't like that idea personally.
Yeah, but I mean, we got a guy that is more defensive-minded in face, and then we got Samaris, which is a guy that could build up in a transition. So perhaps each guy for each game, depending on the game that you need. And I think that, and like I said, the Union game, perhaps we needed a guy like Samaris rather than a guy that stood in front of the defense, which basically served for nothing, really, against Union when Union was behind the ball the whole time. But let's get into this Setubal game. PT scored in 35th minute, so we're up 1-0. 4 minutes later, Jonas would get the 2-0, and it did look like we didn't have too bad of a half, but it seemed that the things kind of were going our way. What did you think, Steve?
They were going our way. I found it like we weren't clicking enough. It just seemed like the football was a little bit sporadic. Yeah, we had 2 goals, but there wasn't. It didn't look cohesive. I don't know if it was. There's different ways you could look at it. There was different variables that could have brought this on. There was a smaller pitch than the week before. Gaitan was missing. Setubal were pretty brave. If you watch the game, they weren't the type of team that just sat back and waited for us. They really tried to contest possession in every zone of the pitch. So it didn't matter where we were. They always were trying to get equal numbers in that area where the ball was. So it could be a little bit of all that put together. But even with the scoreline, I never watched the game and thought we were doing really, really well. I didn't think we created a lot of chances for that 4-goal scoreline.
Yeah. And after the 3-0 scoreline, it did seem that Benfica kind of took their foot off the accelerator. Do you think that was just maybe overconfident, or do you think that some of the tiredness started playing into this team, being that we had played Atletico?
I think both. I think we came out full force in the first half. I mean, we completely dominated them in the first half, which is great to see. But then the second half, we just let our foot off the gas. I mean, we failed to attack really. Setubal came really at us quite a bit, and it was actually a little nerve-wracking at times when we were falling back, especially the back four. Every time you see Luzio go back and defend, you gotta you have your heart in your mouth, right? So you can look at the stats, and in the second half, they actually had more shots on goal than us. So we definitely did underestimate them in the second half. I think, we also were looking at the Tuesday game, and the fact that we took Jonas off at the 70th minute, and he was basically our best player on the field as far as I was concerned. That kind of suggested that we thought at the time that we had this all wrapped up. So, we were fortunate enough to get that fourth goal and make it 4-1. But even then, we still sat back and we conceded that late goal. Not that the scoreline was ever, not that the game was by then was at risk, but still, it kind of showed what kind of a team that we have this year. I mean, I described it earlier in the day as a Jack and High team. You've got a team that does really well against Braga, and then you've got a team that does poorly against Uniao. And the Setubal game kind of was, in one game, you have it in one half. Great team in the first half, and then a crappy team in the second half.
Yeah. Cristiano, I don't know if you got a chance to watch the game, but what did you think of Setubal's posture in this game? They weren't ultra defending like every other team is, and they kind of played into our style.
No, they weren't, and they were open. I like the fact that they came out and they tried to attack, and obviously got two key goals against Benfica. I can't say key because obviously they fucking obviously it didn't affect the score. But two goals, is more than other teams could say against Benfica. They played wide open football, so I was glad to see, being that my second hometown, I was glad to see they weren't afraid to go up against the big sharks and they try to play football and good attractive football.
Yeah, so good, a good win, but not a very dominating performance by Benfica. I think the score line is a little bit fooling, if you want to call it. But nonetheless, the 3 points that we needed to build up on the momentum that we had built up with the Braga game, and now here comes União this past Tuesday, and
a game that should have been won, bro. No excuses.
Yeah, and this game, if you guys recall, Benfica was supposed to play this game back in the 7th round, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, October 4th.
Yeah, at that time, Semedo was healthy, Luizão was healthy, Gaetan was healthy. So now we're going into this game against this União team, who, in all fairness, had been beaten 4-0 by Porto and 6-0 by Passos Ferreira.
Yeah.
I mean, on paper, going into this game, no fog whatsoever. We should have beaten this team. But before we get to that, I'll give you the lineup real quick. Júlio César, Almeida, Lisandro Jardel, and Eliseu across the back. And the only change really was Feza instead of Samaris. Now, Steve, back to the point that I touched up on a little bit ago. With a team like União, which is going to play very defensively, do you think was the right choice? Well, I already know that your preference falls on Samaris, but do you think that Feza was perhaps the right choice to play in this game?
No, absolutely not. You will want more of the ball. You want everybody who comes in contact with the ball, or at least as many players as you possibly can, to have a good relationship with it and know how to use it properly. Feza is not a horrible footballer, but obviously Samaris is a better one. So in a game like that where you're expected to win, where you really need to dominate, you should have your better footballer on the pitch in a position that you're able to do so. There's only one thing where I'm wondering if it was maybe not really a punishment or a wake up type moment for Samaris. Samaris gave away the ball a few times versus Setubal in some ugly situations. There was one where he did a roulette similar to Zidane like to do just in the middle of our half, and he gave away the ball, which created a chance that they didn't actually end up scoring on. But it wasn't the only time that he did give away the ball in some not so great positions. So I'm wondering if it was Rui Vitoria basically saying smarten up, I would hope to say that it's that, but we'll have to see, because this has been a theme for more or less a month now, where Samaris is looking like he may end up being the substitute for the defensive midfield position. And to be honest, I'm not sure he's coping very well with that idea.
I think what Rui Vitoria is trying to do here is, when it's a game that Benfica needs to be a little bit more defensive, he'll plug in Feja. And when it's a game that it'll be a more wide open game, and a game that Benfica needs to create more chances, more controlling of the game, I think that's when he inserts Samaris. I'm not sure I agree with that, but it's just the way I look at it. I think that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, but Cristiano going against Uniao, who's what, the next to last or last place team in this league. I mean, do you want to really go into a defensive mode?
No, you're playing like Lopetegui if you're doing that, right? Like it's amazing how we go into a game where they had just given up 10 goals against the last two opponents, and we go in with Feja in the middle there, and it just shocked me. And Gedge, I gotta say, Gedge is not impressive at all over the last month. I don't know. That game, he just couldn't take on anybody one-on-one. It was frustrating to see.
I got a little bit of a theory on Gedge, but I'll let Steve go first.
I think before you jump in, I think, Alfredo, this might have been one of those cases that Rui Vitoria, overlooked its opponent. It figured no matter who he plays in the midfield, Benfica should still be able to create chances and come away with the victory. And so, in this instance, I think he just decided to go with the guy that's been playing alongside Renato over the last couple of weeks. He's been going over the last couple of weeks, more comfortable, and I think he decided to go with that. It wasn't more of a technical thing, more of a just. I think I got this. No matter who I play, Benfica should still come away with the victory because of reasons like you mentioned before. They've gotten beaten, soundly 6-0 and 4-0, 10 goals over the last two games. I thought Vitoria thought he had this in the bag.
Steve, on Semedo.
On Gedge
sorry.
And Renato, to just bring a point for both of them. You cannot expect 18-year-old kids to play consistently week in, week out at a somewhat high level. The ones who do that are extremely special, but even the ones who are extremely special still have off days where they just won't be able to put in the performance like they need.
Mental aspect of it, I think.
It's more mental than anything else, and I'm not at all surprised that Sanch has had a bad couple games. I'm not at all surprised that Gedge has games where he looks stellar and games where he looks quite poor. It's just something that if we are going to be going forward and providing a lot of opportunities to young players, like it looks like what we're going to be doing, it's something we have to expect. You're not going to get the performances that you get from a guy like Gaetan or Jonas, let's say, who actually has been kind of mediocre this season. But you know what I mean. You're not going to have that steady competitiveness and mentality that you need to play a good match week in, week out. You're not going to get that from 18-year-olds unless they're really mature beyond their years.
Yeah, to me, for Gedge for me is a huge key factor here that I'm going to mention is the absence of Nelson Semedo, because within Nelson Semedo, I think Gedge lost a lot of the creativity on that right side, because Nelson Semedo was partnering up well with him, and they did very well together on that right wing. And I think the absence of Nelson Semedo has just left Gedge without ideas and options.
I agree with that.
I'm also thinking, I mean, you look at the guy, you look at his body language in these games, and you could see that there's no confidence at the moment.
A lot of people have been critical of my criticism of his over the last month or so, but I stand firm on exactly everything I've said so far. This is a guy who has a very good physical abilities. He's fast. I still think he lacks creating ability. I don't think he has the ginga it takes to play out on the wing, but I'm willing to be patient with a guy that's 19 years old, going on 20. I'm very willing to be patient with him. But this is a guy that at the same time I've criticized. He could roll the tape back, criticize his call-ups. The same thing with Nelson Smith when they call him up to the national team. I don't think that these guys warranted a call-up to the Portuguese national team after 10, 12 games at the main level. Just like, I think the world of Renato. I think this kid has all the tools to be a future phenom. But that being said, I hope that they slow down the call-up on calling him up to the national team because, I don't know, something is triggered, something has changed in Renato Guedes' mind. At least I believe so. You can tell his game is definitely dropped off ever since.
Estás com uma bêbada, pá. You just, I know you're talking about both of them, but you said Renato Guedes.
What an awesome combination of a player that would be.
Yeah, I was trying to save time and let Steven and Nelson talk a little bit more.
Nelson.
So I tried to combine the guys' names.
You'll be okay, Chris.
Já não bebes mais nada hoje, man. Aguinha para o resto da noite.
No offense taken.
O já foste. Foda-se, o já foste.
Sergio, what's your take on the kids and a little bit of the inconsistency? Do you share the same view as Steve?
I do. I mean, like Steve, unless you're Lionel Messi at 18 years old ripping up the league, you got to expect that they're going to have ups and downs throughout the year. I mean, they're expected to play a game every 3-4 days, and it's a lot on somebody to just jump in and do that. And I think especially with Gonçalo Guedes, I mean, he's lacking. Unfortunately, he should be job shadowing at this point with Salvio, and he doesn't have that. He's been thrown into the mix from day one, and the fact that at the beginning he kind of grasped it and he ran with it was great. But you're starting to see that inexperience now seep into his game, which is expected from an 18-year-old. And then same thing with Renato. Renato was thrown in out of nowhere. He's expected to take hold of that midfield and run with it box to box, and you're going to start seeing him slip up a little bit. I didn't think he was that bad in Setubal, but in Uniao, and I think the whole team actually in Madeira were off. So you can't expect these guys to come in and just perform day in, day out. They're not 25-year-olds. They're not 28-year-olds, right? Yeah. And they're not named Lionel Messi.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make any excuses for the team, but from this young game, there's very little intensity also. And I wonder how much of that has to do with the very little rest that you've got. You played on Friday. You had Saturday and Sunday to rest. You traveled on Monday. So, I mean, I'm not really sure how much of that had to play with, but I think that throughout the season and what we've seen so far, this team just lacks ideas up top. And I think that when you face a team that locks themselves up and parks the proverbial bus in front of your goal, this team doesn't really have solutions. And then you have the one guy who could create magic left in Lisbon, which is Gaetano, was hurt. So you got a team that is faced with a huge task to break down this União team.
Come on, Alfredo. How huge of a task is it really when someone's just scored 10 goals in 2 matches? It's really coming down to something that's been around for since the beginning of the season. This team lacks processes. It lacks a plan on how to create chances. It hasn't been able to for a long while.
But Steve, we're one of the highest scoring teams in the league.
And that's why this game is very, very interesting, because goals will look like we are the most fantastic attacking team in the league, but
yeah,
if you watch one of our matches, you will see how much trouble we have creating chances. And that's really what it comes down to. It's not so much the numbers. I mean, I read a piece on Lateral Esquerdo, which was maybe a little bit accusatory to the regular fan or to the cafe fan, as you'd like to call it, saying that, oh, the numbers show this, but really, what are they actually saying? Not very much. So you can't really you can't judge a football team or even a match just by numbers alone. You really have to watch it and see what's happening on the pitch, and it's been a constant since day one that we have not been able to create chances. I mean, we've always just not been able to combine and create a good chance, where we've always, since Rui Vitoria has been around, it's been more of a a 1v1 situation that may make something. It's never been a collective play.
Yeah.
We got a long ways to go. When I watched the Atletico game that we actually lost 2-1, I thought we were on the right track. Sadly, the 2 games after that didn't lead me to believe the same thing, which, like I said, after the Atletico game might have been something of a bit of a warning, because Atletico may tease you into believing you could play a little bit better or a little bit more than you can, because they want you to. So
Nicole,
I'm hoping that's not the case.
I'm doing a live broadcast to the #1 show in Portuguese football all over the world. So I just want you to say hi to everybody.
Hey, how's it going?
See? It's Nicole Raven, everybody. You better pay attention to her. Vai lá, continua, Steve. Just wanted to say hi. She's a celebrity. She's a celebrity as serious. Vai lá, fala.
Cristiano is live in the streets of New York, if you haven't heard. So that's what we have to put up with. So it's good. It's good live.
Wait. Put up with. Look at that. Put up with.
It's good. It's good. It's good live and instantaneous and impromptu reaction, which is good.
She's a celebrity, bro. She's a celebrity.
Did you guys look at the stats from the game on Tuesday? I mean, the fact that we had 73%, we had 73% of the possession, yet we only had 2 shots on goal. I mean,
that explains everything, doesn't it?
You know.
Yeah. And let me really break it down for everyone. You could say any hopes that you had of going and getting the 3, they're gone. I think that Benfica, with the 7-point lead that they have right now, or 7 points deficit that they have right now,
yeah,
I think we're done. I think it's expected to lose at Sporting. It's expected to lose at Porto. But when you lose like teams like Aroca and Uniao, that's where your championship is going to be won. And these little games where you got to break down these little teams that park the bus, this is where championship is won. And to me, for Benfica, 7-point deficit on a team that hasn't lost a game yet in the league, and probably is not going to lose many more games in the league. I think it's going to be very difficult for Benfica to even give Sporting a fight for this championship.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that in the 6 years that Jorge Jesus was coach, I think the one what struck us the most was we're 8 points behind when we took the 5-0 beating against Porto, and they never looked back. I mean, we've never been able to recover from a 7-point deficit in the 13th jornada. So that's good, and that's ever, and so that's going to be tough to recuperate.
Yeah, I think that this early in the championship, right before the year, I think that 7 points is a big deficit. Steve, what do you think, man?
That's exactly what I think. It just doesn't seem very likely that we're going to come back from it and pull back to 7 points. Really, there's no evidence to show that. The same piece that I think Sergio read was we've already matched Jorge Jesus' worst season, which was his second. But giving him a little bit of patience, we did get more or less successful with him. So is that what we need to do with Rui Vitoria? We'll have to see. But I'm beginning to think that that's not going to be the case. The more the season goes on. I mean, what did you guys read the reports that after the match in Madeira there was a bunch of fans, well,
a couple dozen, they say,
talking down to Rui Vitoria, and a lot of the players they were specific on who they picked on. It was Rui Vitoria and Jimenez, a few other guys, but they supposedly were supportive to Renato and Jonas. I think it was a couple more, where Rui Costa had to come out and defend them after walking into the bus. He came back out. It's looking like the patience is starting to wear thin, and I don't know. I don't think we gain anything by firing him now.
Steve, I don't understand. Why is Rui Costa babysitting this guy? Really? Does it really
have
to be done?
He's not babysitting. Trying to calm down the fans.
Whatever. Why? Because this is the first time a Benfica coach has been criticized.
Because
so every time.
He's
so
supportive.
Wait a minute. Other coaches have been criticized, and I haven't seen this type of attention to detail as I've seen this year. Every time this guy loses a game, here comes Aurelius walking side by side with him. not Rui Costa comes out. I mean, really? I mean, to me, I call that shit babysitting.
I think that they've invested so much goodwill with Rui Vitoria that they're more than willing to cut him some slack, especially the way that everything happened in the summer with Jorge Jesus, and they're gonna put their balls on the line for this guy. You know, they even said that he is one of them. He is a man of the Escola do Benfica, so they're gonna give him a lot of slack. Now, whether that's right or wrong, that's for everybody else to judge. But that's just the reality. They've given him basically free reign to do whatever he needs to do to get this team running according to his style and his tactics. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen it.
Yes, and they're 7 points behind with all that goodwill. You know what Benfica fans care about?
Winning.
3 points every single week.
Yeah.
They care about going out to Uniao da Madeira again. That should be absolutely won in the bag, 3 points, and drop 2 points. That's what Benfica fans care about. They don't care about the goodwill. Who cares about good? You want goodwill? Donate to the Salvation Army.
No, I mean, I know that there's different levels of Benfica fans, and I know that there's diehards that will believe to the end, and then there's guys that you got to be realistic, and I think that I probably group myself in that vast, maybe it's a vast majority, or maybe it's a large group. I think that realistically this year, you got to chalk it up to a rebuilding year. You got a guy that's a first-year coach, regardless or not whether he's competent to lead this team. You got a guy that's stepping into 6 years of work by a coach that brought us a great deal of success. He hasn't been able to impose his ideas, and I think that perhaps the first year is not the best way to judge on whether or not he can lead this team. Of course, as a Benfica fan, you always want to win. You want to see your team win championships. You want to see your team win games well. You don't want to see your team being humiliated by your rivals. But realistically, if you look at this team and if you look at the direction that the club is trying to go, you have to read this into a rebuilding year, especially with the youngsters being brought up, the new coach, the new direction, the pragmatism of the president. You have to be realistic and really accept this, because otherwise it's going to be heartbreak for the rest of the season.
Yeah, you're going to have to agree with that. As much as we like to bash Rui Vitoria, and I've been kind of doing it since the beginning, he's had a very difficult task in taking over after JJ. I mean, everything was modeled around the way JJ liked it. Not to mention the way he left and the success that he did have before. It's not easy to walk into this job as two-time winning champions and move forward and go forward with one of probably your most influential players leaving to the crosstown rivals. I mean, if you look at all the circumstances, the deck's stacked against the guy. Let's be honest. But that being said, the problem is the more and more you watch him, the less and less you believe that he's got what it takes. So that's the worst part for me.
Yeah, Sergio, what are your feelings?
It's kind of disheartening to see this, especially since we've been spoiled over the last 6 years. But we've even in those 6 years we've experienced the up and downs, right? I mean, I referred to the 5-0 drubbing that we took from Vilas Boas. So I mean, that was definitely a low point in the Jorge Jesus year, the 6 years. Again, also that week in May, those 3 games, another low point. So we've survived and we've overcome. Now, I mean, Jorge Jesus is a special kind of coach. He's fiery, and I just don't see that in Rui Vitoria. He's not the fiery person that we've been used to seeing with Jorge Jesus, right? So it's I think what bothers a lot of people is that he looks like a Mansu. He looks like he's just dead, and he doesn't show the same emotion as Jorge Jesus, especially when something goes bad. Even today, I mean, I was watching the sporting match. Heavens forbid I say that on the podcast, but he had that fire that a lot of Benfica fans miss on our touchline. And I remember seeing an image online of Rui Costa during the Taça de Portugal game, he was livid at something, and you didn't see that from Rui Vitoria. And that's Rui Costa's not even the coach; he's just a delegate on the bench, and he was just livid. And a lot of people reacted to that image, saying that's the attitude and that's the alma that we need from a coach. So a lot of people are definitely disappointed in the tactics. I'm personally disappointed at the intensity that he brings to the team. Just because I'm used to seeing that from Jorge Jesus, but I think I want a coach to be that intense and show that he cares about it, for the 90 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, different guys have different personalities. But I get what your point is. I think that there's a lot of people that criticize him for that. That all they say is that this guy drinks tons of water. That's all he does in the sideline.
Yeah,
he doesn't argue. He doesn't call out the players. I mean. There's a lot of guys that think that a Benfica coach should be all over players' asses, but that's not this guy's personality.
He doesn't want to play the game in the media, and I get that. And in some way, I respect that. But look, again, Rui Costa was the first one this season to come out and start criticizing and say, hey guys, everything is going against us. Everybody's getting the calls. We're not getting the calls. Rui Costa was the first one to say that out in the media. Only, I guess, 2 days ago did Rui Vitoria really kind of start sticking it to everybody. It's just not the
second time now.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, because when he went, we could be good but not goody two shoes. I guess would be the proper way to translate that. And then just this week, the part that bothers me the most is that's out of character for him. I'm thinking that either one, he's being forced to say these types of things, or two, he's starting to lose the plot and is acting out of character.
Yeah, because desperation.
Yeah, out of desperation.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I do not think that's Rui Vitoria, really. Not the Rui Vitoria that we've seen up until now, anyway. So it's something that we'll have to keep an eye on. If as the season progresses, that continues, I'm thinking that's some sort of tactic, either from the club or basically him just starting to lose it a bit.
Yeah. Now, do you think the comments that he said yesterday after the game, basically blaming ourselves, is that a way of him throwing in the towel for the season?
No. I think it's too early for any coach to publicly throw in the towel. Whether or not he can make you believe, as a player or even as a fan, that he can turn it around is one thing, but for him to publicly throw in the towel, I don't think that was his intention at all.
No. I don't think so either. I think it's way too early. I think that he has orders from Luis Felipe Vieira. I think he still has both Luis Felipe Vieira and Rui Costa's approval. And as long as that keeps going on, you will continue confident in what he's doing. He'll continue working. The results will come at one time or another, but I'm afraid that was going to be too late when they come already. We're going to be down more points by the time we see a little bit of his DNA in his team, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead and take a short break for Nelson's halftime headlines, and we'll be right back. All right, and we're back, and with the two games behind us, let's look ahead to what's coming. And obviously, the first piece of news is the Champions League drawing. We drew Zenit from St. Petersburg, and André Villas-Boas' team, Hulk's team, Garay's team, Javi Garcia's team. Who else am I missing?
Witzel, and our arch nemesis Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a team that we're quite familiar as far as the players go. I think that their coach is quite familiar with the way we are, but I think that André Villas-Boas also had a special liking to facing JJ, and I think maybe it's not going to be as personal for Villas-Boas this time. What do you think, Steve?
They always try to make it come off as they were friends, so I don't know. As a diehard Portista, I'm sure he's very happy to try to face us and beat us. But the whole JJ AVB thing, I don't know how to take that, because if you remember, there was the game against Tottenham after AVB got sacked and JJ put up the four fingers and all that stuff. So I don't know how much of rivals or enemies the two of them are, but to say the least that AVB would love to beat us, yeah, that's for sure. I mean, diehard Portista there.
Yeah, so definitely not the hardest opponent that we could have drawn. There was guys out there, there was teams out there that would have been a lot harder. The one thing that I kind of find interesting about Zenit is that when we play the first game on February 16th, Zenit will still be having their winter break. Obviously, the team is going to prepare, but they won't have that playing rhythm that a team like Benfica or any other team in Europe will have as they'll be playing through the winter. They don't play through the winter in Russia. So the first game is at the Luz on February 16th, and the second leg is on the 9th of March in St. Petersburg, where the weather should be more or less kind of mild. I don't think it'll be too cold in March.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
It is Russia, so it's probably going to be cold.
Yeah, but it's not going to be the November cold that you could have faced in Russia. So nonetheless, I think that we'll get into this as we get closer to the game. But I think that Benfica has a good chance of going on, depending on the team progresses from now until then.
Okay, that's a good way to put it.
Any chance we can call back Nelson Oliveira to score that goal?
I don't know.
I think his loan is season long.
Come on, dude. Between Mitroglou, Nelson Oliveira, and Jimenez, I don't know. That's a tough one. It's a very. Hey, I think I'd take Cardozo over those three guys.
No kidding.
Wow.
Or Lima.
Lima for me personally.
For sure, yeah.
More my type of forward. I mean, those tall guys that aren't very mobile. I can't think of a truly successful team in Europe who's got a player like that as their main striker anyway.
Yeah. So there was rumors that Barcelona was interested in Cardozo.
Yeah.
I would have sold him instantly, but that's just me.
All right. So anyway, let's look ahead. Rio Ave comes up this Sunday at Stade de Luz, 4 p.m. local. Rio Ave is currently in 5th. 6 wins, 3 ties, and 4 losses. Away, they only have 1 win, 3 ties, and 2 losses. And they're actually, Steve, they're tied for first in goals scored on away games.
Wow, that's quite the stat. I would never have caught that on, but
I think Porto is the other team that they both have 13 goals away in the championship.
Well, they are going to be traveling to the Stade de Luz. Let's hope they don't continue that kind of form.
Yeah.
It's a team that throughout the years has always been there, 4th, 5th place. They've never. I can't remember them beating us except for I think the year before last. But
No,
they've always wasn't it?
They beat us, but they beat us in Rio Ave. Yeah.
Yeah, they beat us last year, and that was that was wow,
away.
what a day. Oh
Yeah,
wow. That was one day where I thought we had lost the championship, and then to hear Nacional had tied Porto. Oh my God!
You have a good memory search.
Well, that was a Saturday. The funny thing is, I was listening to the Relato during a wedding, and my wife was pissed off at me at the time. And I was listening, and when I heard Rio score in the last second, I think it was the penalty. I was just pissed, and then to hear then afterwards that Porto had tied, I was ecstatic. Talk about a Benfiquista that day. To go from the pits to like ecstatic in one day, in literally 6 hours, it was great.
Yeah. Last 5 matches at Stade de Luz, 5 wins for Benfica, and Benfica outscored Rio Ave 17-2.
Wow. It's impressive.
I mean, stats are stats, and in the game of football, they're most count for nothing, but nonetheless, still interesting. Their coach is Pedro Martins. Is a coach that I kind of admire. Yeah.
If nothing else, he's got a great name.
He's got a great name. That's right.
No, he's always been. He's more of a proactive coach than a guy who likes to park the bus. So let's see what happens when it comes to Luz.
I mean, they are in 5th. They didn't get to 5th just by being an ultra defensive team like Uniao. So I mean, they have scored their share of goals, and they've also played their share of good games.
For sure.
So, well, we'll see what happens. As I've said, Sunday, 4 p.m. local, so set your alarms. That's 11 here in the East Coast of the United States, also Toronto time.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So that'll be nice and early. You get that game out of the way. You have the rest of your Sunday to do whatever you want. And next topic, TV deal. Benfica held a press conference this past Thursday to announce the TV deal. And I think the values don't change much from what we had talked about. So basically, if I just want to summarize it for you, Benfica games will stop being exclusive to Benfica TV home games, and but BTV will continue to exist, but as a free channel, not as a paid channel. NOS, which was the company that acquired the rights and is paying Benfica all this money, they will have the option of selling Benfica games to whatever other channel they want. I believe they own 50% of Sport TV, so most likely Benfica games are going to be back on Sport TV, both home games and away games like they have now. And also this week came out that Sport TV increased their price on their channels, so maybe they're already preparing for that.
No kidding. Don't worry, we'll keep watching in Nasi, right?
Yeah. If Sport TV lost a big share of the market when Benfica TV came on, they lost some subscribers. But Benfica TV will now they're going to lose the EPL rights, if I'm not mistaken, because they don't really care to attract people to their channel, nor will they have a paid channel that they could just charge people to watch those games. So I mean, a good deal for Benfica. The money's there, and we'll see what happens. Also, as far as the international front, from what I understand and what I'm read, NOS will be within their best interest, from what they said, to distribute the games to as many countries as possible. So we'll see how that turns out, and I think that deal starts next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Right.
One aspect of the deal I actually like is the fact that Luis Vitoria kind of said that he wanted to allocate that money towards the Passivo. Yeah. We all know it right now. It sits at like a ridiculous amount. Like I think it's 432 million euros. Yeah. And the fact that he's kind of banking on that money to go towards the debt, and rather than investing in players, I kind of like that. A lot of people are probably going to scream and say, "Well, you got to buy players." Well, not necessarily. If you're going to go out of business, if you have this huge debt, we should really be paying down the debt. So I do like that one aspect of the deal.
I think that as far as the players go, the model is there. You got Champions League money. You also got money that you have that you're selling young kids for. So I mean, it's there. You're also going to rely heavily on the academy, on the Seychelles. Because from what I understand, and if you bother reading about the national teams, the under whatever, or the young kids in the national teams, most of the players in these national teams, featured in these national teams, are from Seychelles. So it's coming. It's coming. Hang in there. This year,
we just need a little bit of patience. That's all.
This year's for the birds.
And to beat Villas-Boas at his game, right?
I mean, look, I don't mean to be too negative, but I think at this point you got to be realistic about the current situation. 7 points is a lot. 7 points is a lot of points,
especially now. And then December, that's a crazy amount.
And then you turn that into a head-to-head against Sporting. That's more points than 7. So I mean, if you'd won this União game, you would have been right there with them. You would have still been at a distance where, the matches between the two teams. Sporting now plays Porto in the 2nd of January. There would be a chance for you to gain points on either one of them, if not both. That's away now. Whatever points you're going to get there, you're still going to be 4 points away. Yeah. With probably half the championship already done by January.
Well, you still have to play in Guimarães. You still have to go to Madeira and face Nacional. You still have to go to Madeira and go face Marítimo, and those are all tricky ties for us, especially in the past.
Absolutely. As I've said, the championship is won on the little games against the little teams. That's why Cristiano was so mad that we lost against Passo Ferreira that one time.
I remember that.
All right. So I think that's it for Benfica. Let's turn our attention to the national team now. The Euro in France comes up this summer. They held the group drawings this past Saturday, and quite a favorable drawing for for Portugal. They drew Austria, Hungary, and Iceland. They open up against Iceland. The second game is against Austria, and then they close out the group stages against Hungary. And from what I understand, the first two teams of the group advanced. Steve, is that right? Or you don't know?
I believe you're correct.
And then the top thirds. I don't know how many thirds go. So if Portugal can't get out of this group stage, then I don't know what.
I didn't look too closely at that, but I was listening to something, and supposedly the problem is the matchup that you play next, and I think it leaves you with Italy or
Belgium.
There you go. Thank you, Sergio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
And
the
then the
problem.
funny
Your next
thing
match is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then after that, it's a quarterfinal match with England if they top their group. So, oh yeah, this is going to be an interesting Euro.
Yeah. Patrick Kendrick sees us going all the way to the final to play France.
Oh, ja fushed. Yeah, right. I'd love to see that happen, but you know what? There's going to be a lot of. It's going to be tough. This is going to be definitely the toughest Euro ever. You know, I mean, we definitely can't look past Iceland and Austria. They surprised during qualifying, but I mean, like you guys echoed, if we don't get out of this group in first place, I'd be questioning ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. We'll get into the national team more as the Euro approaches. But for now, you'll just have to put up with some pessimist Benfica talk for the rest of the season. Hopefully, there'll be some positives along the way. But from the way things are going, I'm not sure.
No, hopefully we can win the Taça de Cerveja this year again. Hey, why not?
Yeah, that's right. So tonight's with Sergio's first time. Thank you, Sergio, for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I thought you had been in one of those group ones, but I guess they never came together.
No, I missed out. Now, no, when I talked to one of my friends, Jason Rainman, he's like, "You got to do it. You got to do it." And I'm like, "Okay, not a problem." He said, all you have to do is just do a shout out to all your fans back at the Casa de Benfica in Toronto." So I promised when I do that. There you go, boys. I'll be there at 11 o'clock on Sunday.
Epa. Will Neil be there?
Actually, no. I think he watches home games in the comfort of his home. He usually comes to the games when we play away. So I'll probably see him on the 2nd against Guimarães.
Yeah, I almost forgot to do some questions. And Meg, as always, she's an assiduous.
I don't know. Use English, I know.
She watches and she listens to the podcast every week. She asks, after the União game, should Benfica drop Guedes and try Carcel instead? I think you gotta stick with Guedes. I don't know. For me, it's Guedes. I think Carcel is still
Linguista.
Yeah, he's not a team player. I think that he has talent, but he's yet to develop that instinct to play for the team.
I don't know. I don't know if it's that clear cut. Carcel does give you that 1v1 ability that basically is all we could really do at the moment, and Guedes doesn't really do that. So,
but everything is a show off for Carcel.
I see that. I know where you're getting at, but if you could get him in a more confident and a more consistent mood, I think he could do things that Gonçalo Guedes can't, especially not in the frame of mind he is at right now. That's the way I look at it. Whether or not I would totally drop him and even start Carcel over him, I don't know if that's the way I would do it, but I would definitely start trying to give Carcel some more minutes, maybe even just to relieve some of the pressure off of Guedes, because Guedes right now is in a bad moment. So we'll see how it works.
Here's one from Eric. What happens to Lisandro once Luizão returns? He's a great player, but he might want to leave if he's benched again. I think he likes to be at Benfica, and I think that he kind of sees himself also as a guy who's going to step into Luizão's role. I don't know how much longer Luizão has.
It's hard to read that really from this far away. I just think he we'll think he's safe up until January, February. I don't think we would sell him before that. So you're waiting till the summer to see what happens with him.
We don't have adequate backup.
Exactly. That's why he's not going in January like the original stories were going to Fiorentina and whatnot. That's not going to happen. Personally, I think that he will probably be starting center back by next year. It's going to be difficult for Luizão to come back after this injury. At his age, to get back into rhythm becomes a lot more difficult than when you're young. So let's see what happens to that.
Yeah. One last one from Mike Da Costa. Why do you think Vitoria chose Talisca over Juricic as a sub in the União game, especially how well he played versus Setúbal? I think that, to answer your question, but first of all, I don't think Juricic had that one play where he had plenty of room. He did well, had a good decision. But I think overall, the minutes that he was there, he didn't do much else. I think that the whole thing with Talisca was that Vitoria wanted to have the option of an outside shot, and Talisca offers that, and I don't think Juricic does.
Yeah,
because everybody was locked in. The bus was parked, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I agree with that, and the cynical side of me believes Juricic only played because we were putting him in the shop window for January. I just find it very, very odd that a guy who hasn't played all season, but it's the first week of December, and you have a game more or less in the bag, and you put him on the field. To me, that was
just out of the blue. It makes
completely out of the blue. He didn't just start training extremely well.
He hasn't made the roster in all these games, and all of a sudden he makes the roster and he plays. So there's definitely something fishy there.
There you go.
And there's definitely some kind of I guess you guys read the papers about Talisca and his. I wouldn't call it criticizing Vitoria, but he was critical about the amount of time that he's had this year versus last year. So I don't know if that factored into his decision to put in Talisca. Probably not. I don't think Rui Vitoria really reads the papers, but I just found it an interesting coincidence that you hear one thing come out earlier in the day, and then this guy gets thrown into basically a must-win situation at that time.
Yeah, I don't think that Vitoria is a guy that succumbs to pressure, especially at Benfica.
Yeah,
I'll agree with that. I think that was just like Alfredo said. It was the type of player or attributes that you could use at that point.
Yeah.
Rui Vitoria is not going to fall for anything.
Here's Talisca's lowdown, if you may. The reason why he did so well last year was because he was already mid-season in Brazil. So when he came to Benfica, he was well ahead of everyone as far as game rhythm goes and fitness. As soon as everybody else got caught up to him, he really slowed down. I think that the lack of perhaps finding a position for him where he's best suited. I've yet to see a position where he plays well and he's best suited to play. So right now we really don't know what to do with Talisca, to be honest with you. The lack of playing time has also worn him down as far as confidence goes. He's not playing. He's not confident. He has doubts. So there's all those factors playing into it. Also, first year in Portugal, actually second year in Portugal, but not playing is something that bears down on a guy that used to be a starter in Brazil, perhaps the first guy on the roster sheet. So that's got to be weighing down. But as far as Talisca goes, I think that he has talent, but we have yet to see where we could use that talent. So
I don't know. If it was up to me, he would have went with Mourinho last year when they were fighting over him and all that crap.
Ding, ding, ding. I agree with that right there.
Mourinho might want to take him now.
Cash in while you can is what I had that down, but no one agreed with me, I guess.
Give him a 2-for-1 deal. Send Tarabat with them too.
Oof. Good thing. Good thing Chris is lost somewhere in New York City, or else he'd be all over you on that one.
Can you imagine Tarap and Diego Costa on the same team?
Yeah, I can imagine Diego Costa pulling him by the ears.
Yeah. So Tarap scored the good goal. Nice goal. Nice.
Oh, I missed that.
With the B team, Steve, you got to check that out, man. Yeah. It's nice goal.
13 minutes.
12 seconds. Yeah, 12.
Oh, 12 seconds.
All right.
Mhm.
That's it for us. We will be back next week. We'll break down the Chihuahua game. We'll look ahead to, I think,
Taça
the
da Cerveja.
Taça de Cerveja, and then the team takes the Christmas break, if I'm not mistaken.
No, the Taça da Cerveja game is the 29th, so it's in between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah, but they'll have a break between this weekend and the
Yes.
Taça de Cerveja. They'll
Yes.
have a Christmas break.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's about it. planetbenfica.co.uk, at Steve Santos 6. Serge, you're going to have to say yours, dude. I don't know it off the top of my head.
At Sergio_R81, Sergio Jafforst. And my T-shirts are available right now. Eat, sleep, Benfica, repeat.
Where can we find your T-shirts, dude?
You can get them Benfica.spreadshirt.com.
Oh no! What a
You
time
cut
for your
off.
phone to cut out. Or your
Go again.
internet.
Repeat that.
Benfica.spreadsheet.com.
Benfica.spreadsheet.com is where you can find.
Spreadshirt.com.
That makes more sense.
Tu vens por aqui e não sabes essas coisas de cor, pá. Poxa.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous.
So Benfica.spreadshirt.com is where you can find Sergio's shirt. And if you remember, Sergio was at the airport when Benfica arrived in Toronto, and he had that shirt that says, what does it say?
Eat, sleep, Benfica, repeat.
Eat,
Sleep, Benfica, repeat.
There you go. So if you want to check that out and maybe buy that as a stocking stuffer for somebody, better get on that Benfica.spreadshirt.com. All right. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for checking us out. Chris is at 10CO10. Who knows what's going on in the streets of New York right now? So,
the man is lost. I think
yeah.
you should send out a rescue team.
Right. Yeah, and shout out to everybody that's been watching us live on YouTube. You guys know who you are. Thanks a lot for your support, and we'll talk to you guys again next week. See ya.
Ciao.
Yeah.